are there any questions over the stuff we just did? Are there any questions over Peggy Eaton, tariff controversy, nullification crisis, the force bill, JCI?
What was the tariff of 1830? Was that the...
Tariff of 1832?
No, 1833.
The tariff of 1833, that was the reduction of tariffs over 8 years. I promise you, you're coming close to the end of all the tariff stuff. We have like 2 more tariffs you need to. But on the bright side, you'll always know what tariffs are the rest of your life. That's a bright side. Do what? You already did? But did you know what the tariff of 1832 was? I don't think so. So now you're better as a human. Go home and tell people that. How many of you guys went home and told your parents all about Obamacare and your parents were not happy that you knew about it?
I told my grandma.
I talked about it at lunch.
No, we didn't.
I had one parent asked me, why are you talking about that in U.S. history? And then one parent said, don't listen to him. He doesn't know anything about history or economics. So I'm sorry that I'm teaching you all this history, and then if you take AP economics, apparently I don't know what I'm talking about. Although on some level, maybe I don't. Do what? It didn't get heated in 5th block, but 5th block has a few more right-wingers in there. And then they have a couple left-wingers too. So it is a little bit more going on. I'm excited when you guys merge. It's going to be a little more. Right? It's like when you watch Survivor, right? And the 2 sides merge, right? Do what? Well, we usually won't have debates like I'm not going to put some people on this side and people on this side, but when we talk about issues, we will definitely let you say what you want as long as it deals historically with it, you know? Do what?
Actually pertains.
Yeah, and the stuff that we were talking about does pertain to the issues of Obamacare and government shutdown and stuff, but, you know, it's good.
To listen to my mom complain about how Obamacare was going to take away my grandma's insurance.
That's not going to.
That's not going to go.
No, it's,
All because he's a Muslim.
It's not.
right, if he wasn't a Muslim born in a different country, we wouldn't have these problems. That's what happens when America elects some Muslim from a different country, and you start getting these problems.
So he didn't go to Harvard because a few people didn't know he was in the class.
That is awesome. That I have had a student tell me this year that he didn't really go to. We don't talk about names. All right, let's talk about the election of 1832. Election of 1832. We got 2 people running. Actually, we got our first third party in American history. And I love this party because it's an anti-something party. First of all, we got Henry Clay, our national Republican from the great Commonwealth of Kentucky. All right. That wasn't overwhelming, but whatever. And then we have Jackson, Old Hickory. Originally, because of the spoils system, Jackson thought it was not a good idea for presidents to have 2 terms because that was sort of like a dynasty, and he thought it was a great idea for presidents to have 1 term, do their service, and leave until it was time for him to run again, and then he stopped thinking it was such a bad idea. Yeah.
It's just like a win-win for Jackson, though, because didn't he say that Henry Clay could be his successor? Or whatever you said earlier?
No, Bonner Van Buren.
Oh, Van Buren.
Yeah. No, Jackson and Henry Clay were not BFFs.
Okay.
They didn't pass each other notes during study hall and things like that.
No.
All right, Clay had all these advantages. Almost every newspaper in the country was like, you gotta vote for Clay. He's the only reasonable candidate. Most of them were highly critical of Jackson. Clay was supported by Daniel Webster in the North. Clay was supported by funders of the bus and the wealthy. Clay he had been in government forever. He knew everything. He had been a senator. He had been the Speaker of the House. He had been Secretary of State. So what happens in the election? Who wins? Jackson. It's not close. Why is it not close? Because Clay could have all the newspapers he wanted. He could have all the rich people he wanted. He could have all the smart people he wanted. But what didn't he have? He didn't have the common man. And Jackson did. In fact, the electoral vote was, 219 to 49.
Holy crap, he was killed.
we'll start seeing killed when we get to FDR. Some of his numbers. In 1936, FDR won 523 to 8.
Okay, so
His name was Al Landon. Yes, JC.
Oh, we're getting to the end time.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. All right. And also, we're gonna have our first ever third party,
yay.
the Anti-Mason Party. The Anti-Mason Party, they were very, like, you've heard of the Masons before?
Yeah.
Well, the Masons were, Washington was a Mason, Jackson was a Mason, and there were some theories out there the Masons were keeping themselves in power, and this secret organization was too powerful, too ritualistic.
So what were the Masons just a different
The Masons are still around. The Masons it's a Christian organization of just sort of like community people. The Masons do stuff like community. Like, have you seen? Like, don't we have a Masons lodge here in town, right? Yeah, isn't it down on Main Street? Is that right? To what? It's on Carlton. Okay. Yeah, the Masons are really big. In fact, if you've seen that stupid movie National Treasure, there's also stuff about Masons and things.
The Freemasons.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, I don't know. Oh, right, crappy movie. I got that now. All right. I watched that instead of The Godfather. All right.
At least we learned a little bit.
So this party, a lot of evangelical people were in the anti-Masonic party because the Masons were seen as like more rationalist type of, more intellectual leaders. And so the anti-Mason party, it didn't get a lot of votes, but it's our first third party. And it's an anti-something party. They're not running for something, they're running against something. How awesome is that? Our first third party. And we start getting nominating conventions. Each party nominates their candidate for presidency, right? Today we have nominating conventions, right? The Democrats have it, the Republicans have it. Even our other smaller parties have nominating conventions. Today they're not really a big deal in the sense that no one is actually elected there. I mean, it used to be, like in 1960, for instance, no one knew going into the Democratic National Convention if Kennedy was going to be the presidential nominee for the Democrats or Johnson was, right? That's where Kennedy wins. Today, when Obama showed up, everyone knew who was going to be the candidate for the Democrats. Obama. And when it was Republican National Convention, everybody knew who was going to be the Republican nominee, Mitt Romney, because of the way our primaries work now. We still have these nominating conventions. And people go when they nominate. It's a little bit more, at the time it was more Democratic. Today I think we do it more Democratic, but these are still kind of big deals. And so that's going on in 1832 also. Alright, let's talk about Jacksonian democracy when it comes to economics and states' rights. The funny part about this is, he was all about federal power when it came to doing what he wanted to get done, but he also argued for states' rights when it came to economics. Okay? And we are going to possibly panic here in a second. Tevis is not here again. You haven't panicked yet. So maybe we might get to panic today. Alright, here is the main part of Jackson when it comes to economics. Divorce the government from the economy. Laissez-faire. Do not let the government regulate the economy. Give more power to the states to regulate the economy. And in doing so, Clay, remember, where did he teach again? Okay. I'll put that on their notes just in case you missed that. And you can see down where it says Maysville. I know people who went from Maysville who went to Transy. The first big target for Jackson, if he's a common man guy, what's he hate? The bus. He hates the bus. Alright. So now here's what Jackson, or here's what Clay tried to do to Jackson. And this is back in 1832, so back up a little bit. Before the 1832 election, remember, how long we had the first bus? The first bus was like 1791 through 1811, I think, right? It's a 20-year charter. Remember during the War of 1812, I said they didn't have a bus, and that was a problem? And they gave their new recharter, so it was 1816 to 1836. But now in the election of 1832, Clay wanted to make this an actual issue, like a campaign issue. So he wanted to recharter, so this is the second, he wanted to recharter the third bus. Go ahead and recharter it. That way Jackson, if he vetoed it, would be hurting the economy, and if he accepted it, he'd be pissing off all the common man, right? And there was lots of pressure on him to do this. Either alienate the West or hurt the economy. Well, what he ended up doing was, he ended up vetoing the bus. He was having all these symptoms like he was getting so much pressure about keeping the bus, or getting rid of the bus, and he famously said, "The bank is trying to kill me, but I will kill it." And for whatever reason, kids have loved that stupid saying. It's always on like AP exams, people say that. The bank is trying to kill me, but I will kill it. And in my head, he turns his fist like this to the sky and says it to no one in particular, but I don't know if that really happened.
This was Jackson.
This was Jackson. Jackson wanted to get rid of the bus. Clay wanted the bus. In fact, here is what they end up doing, and it's going to end up causing, so he vetoes the bus. The head of the bus driver, you might say, was a guy named Nicholas Biddle. You're welcome, people watching at home. Alright, all two of you, including me. Alright. Alright, Nicholas Biddle was head of the bus. He was our bus driver. And so you have all of the American money, plus you have the U.S. Treasury money in here, plus you have deposits from, people using this as your bank, right? Well, what Jackson's going to do, you can kind of skip back down to the pet banks thing, and I'm going to show you how Jackson kills the bus, then we'll talk about why the bus was actually pretty good. Remember when he talks about pet banks? What are pet banks?
Banks that are by the state.
Yeah, and they were much less secure, right? So so you have Jackson over here, and his Secretary of the Treasury was a guy named Roger Taney, who ended up being Supreme Court Chief Justice, and he was uber racist, but he was a Southerner, states' rights guy. He is Jackson's Secretary of the Treasury, right? And so what happens is, instead of Taney putting the money in the bus, Taney starts putting the American money in these pet banks, right? So now we've taken bus money and put them in pet banks. Are you with me so far? What's the problem with pet banks though? Why are they not as secure?
Because they don't have wealthy people.
Well, they loan out to people who have less money, which means they're more likely to default on loans, and they just have less money in the bank, right? The more money a bank has, the more secure it is to loan out money. Does that make sense? If you get money, if you need to borrow $10,000 and I give it to you, or a millionaire gives it to you, which one is going to be a more stable person to get money from? The millionaire. I'm not a millionaire. Okay. So now Biddle sees all the bus money going out to these banks. So he gets really pissed, and guess what he does? He starts calling all the loans. He starts calling loans on all the people. Do you know what it means when they call a loan? Okay, listen, put your pencil down and listen for a second so you understand what a call a loan means. When you get a loan, so let's say I give $100,000 to Ejo to go buy a little house, alright? You now have $100,000 and you're going to pay me back that money every month plus interest. That's how loans work, right? On the basic level. Whoever loans you the money actually reserves the right to call in the loan, which means if they need to, I can say, you still owe me $95,000, right? You're paying every month and you're down to $95,000, but I'm going to go ahead and need that $95,000 right now. That's called calling in a loan. Now, lending institutions usually don't do that. In fact, they rarely do that because it's to their benefit to keep getting the monthly payments because that's how you make a lot more money. But if lending institutions are desperate for money, maybe they start calling in loans. Well, Ejo, do you think Ejo has $95,000 in cash? No. So what do I do to Ejo if she can't give me that $95,000? I take the asset that the bank actually owns, right? well, if she can't pay me back, and then Bailey can't pay me back, and Cassidy can't pay me back, and O'Bannon can't pay me back, what ends up happening to the banks? They don't go into debt.
They go under.
They go under. And so what ends up happening is he starts calling in these loans, and these banks start failing. And with it, all the money from the bus gets taken away. So the bus looks like a dying monster on its way out, right? Biddle's trying to piss off Tanny, and Tanny's trying to screw over Biddle. And the bus dies. And most of these people getting loans out west were small farmers, right? And in response to there being no money out here, Jackson passes something called the Specie Circular. Do you see that?
Yeah.
What that is means that all land bought from the government, which is most land, must be paid in hard currency. What's hard currency? Gold or silver. You can't use cash. So what happens to people who want, do you think most small farmers have gold or silver?
No.
No. So what happens is, all these loans get called in, all this stuff gets taken, nobody can buy land because you got to buy it in hard currency. The bus fails and it sends us into a what?
Panic.
It sends us into the Panic of 1837. Now before we panic, let's go over the strengths of the bus. What's the number on that, Quinn?
6 minutes.
6 minutes?
16.
16 minutes, there you go. Start the spot, please.